Hey everyone, this is Chris Crazy House, and I want to talk a little bit about the news that was announced about this brand new show that's coming to Disney Plus. I believe it is called the second, the Secret Society of Second Born Royals. And one of the stars of this show is going to be Niles Fitch, young black actor. He's going to be playing one of these royals, and apparently the collective of black nerddom online and on social media have been wetting their pants because I guess he's going to be the first live action black prince, apparently. And I was one of the few people on one of these message boards who was not super ecstatic about this occurrence. Now, I'm not a stick in the mud or a person who is a hater or begrudges anyone as far as the actor himself, Niles Fitch, having success. That's not my issue here. My issue is when anytime black people get too overly excited about certain roles in mainstream or in pop culture, and we get too overly excited about it, essentially just setting ourselves up for complete and utter disappointment later on. I don't get too excited about these things, and nor do I, as a black male, believe that we should be begging or petitioning Hollywood to put us in these pop culture, uh, put us into these pop culture movies or into these franchises. We don't need to beg for that. We have more than enough buying power. We have more than enough creativity where we can make our own, and we can have our own content without having to rely on other groups of people to put us in their content. And one of the reasons I worry about this is because anytime they put us in their content, there is always room for some sort of trickery. And I don't want to have to deal with that, especially when it comes to any type of content that is geared towards young black people and young black viewers who are very impressionable as young people are. I always worry about the idea of having certain images fed to young black people. Now, a lot of so-called black nerds, and even that term in and of itself is not, to me, that is not something you can really qualify. Sometimes these people think just because they watch comic book movies and they wear glasses that qualifies them as a nerd, and I don't. There was a time when being a nerd was actually a bad thing, or being called a nerd or a geek was actually a bad thing when I was growing up, and the things that I liked back then were considered things that no one should be watching or reading. There was a time where reading comic books and watching anime and watching animation and watching sci-fi and fantasy movies and reading books and playing different types of card games or role-playing games like D&D or Magic the Gathering. All that was considered nerdy, and you should be by yourself and socially outcast for doing or participating in things like that. Now all of a sudden it's something popular. So now everyone, according to them, to whatever definition they want to make up, now they're all nerds, apparently. So they're all enthused. Most of these black nerds are enthused about this idea. And it's the whole, I mean, let's be honest, it's the idea of tokenism and the whole idea of being the first black whatever. At this point in our history, the fact that there are still black people getting excited about someone being the first black person on any type of TV show or movie, I think that's ridiculous, especially when it comes to something that's not serious. Now, if this is something that you actually accomplished as a black person, like maybe being like the first black astronaut, being like Mae Jemison, or doing something in the medical field, like something important, like okay, fine, that's something I guess you can celebrate. But being the first person in an imaginary fictional world, especially something like Disney, that's not really something you should be celebrating. Now, I know a lot of people put a lot of stock in it because when you've been starved in any capacity. So whether you've been starved physically or been starved in seeing yourself visually in entertainment, if someone throws you a crumb, you are going to be excited about it. As the comedian Eddie Murphy made a joke about in his comedy stand-up Raw, he said if you're starving and someone throws you a cracker, you're going to think that's the best cracker you've ever eaten in your entire life. And it's really not anything special. It's just a plain old Ritz, or just a plain old saltine cracker. But you've been starving for so long, it tastes amazing. And that's the way it is for black folks. It is, there's so much of a lack of us in mainstream entertainment that when we do see ourselves in any capacity, we lose our minds. That's how it was when Black Panther came out. Like, I was one of those people who I wasn't overly enthused about it, but neither was I overly negative about it. It was just a movie to me, okay? So when that came out, I was not one of the people that was dressing up in Wakanda clothes and kente cloth and thinking this was somehow some sort of great advancement for black people, okay? The same thing with the character Finn being in Star Wars. I was not enthused about that. And you see what they did with that character, okay? He was not anything special. So my whole thing is, don't get too excited when you see these things, when you see these characters in these movies or part of these mainstream quote-unquote universes and genre movies. Don't get too excited, because it might not be the great thing that you think it is. And my whole thing is, as far as this goes, I'm always very wary when you have just one black character in this cast of other characters, and I wonder what they're going to do with him, because they tend to add on and just tack on different things to minority, or how should I say it, people of color characters. The person of color always has to have something extra tacked on there in order for these people to feel like they filled their quotas. So I would not be surprised if this Black Prince character wound up being gay or trans or bi or something like that, just so they can check off all their quotas on this one character, which is absolutely ridiculous, by the way, and also a backhanded slap in a way of emasculating black males in a visual medium. It's something which I also worry about. We have enough negativity posted and put onto black males without having to see that type of image. We're being emasculated on screen. Another thing that I worry about is that they're going to have any type of Black Prince character. Is he going to have a princess that resembles him? Is he going to have a black princess? And some people will say that that's not a big deal, but it is. Even on this so-called black nerd message board, they made it seem like if he has a white princess as his mate, then that's not a big deal. And I commented that it is a big deal, that it would be a problem if they did that. There's so much propaganda and negativity put out there about black relationships, as far as making it seem as if black men and black women can't get along. And if they are in a relationship, it's always portrayed as something negative or hurtful or something disturbed or unhealthy, to the point where our young people seek out people of other races as their mate, and they don't see someone who is their actual reflection as a proper mate for themselves. So I don't want to see that portrayed on screen either. We have enough of that. There's so much of that type of propaganda put on young black girls. It's ridiculous. And to put that on black boys, you see a lot in the music with a lot of these rappers and these celebrities. They always have a woman who's not black on their arm, and if the woman is black, she might be racially ambiguous, or she's dressed up looking like a mockery of a white female. So that's what I don't want to see on screen. So that's the problem I have with this so-called Black Prince, and this is something that we do have to be concerned about. I'm not going to jump up and start clapping like a dumb seal, because I think that this is some sort of great achievement for black people. It's not. They're putting a black character on there to maybe somehow hook your black dollars and somehow get to the mind of your young black person who's going to be watching this Disney Plus TV show or movie or whatever it's supposed to be. but I would warn you not to be too excited about it and to do your due diligence and do your research before you let your child watch it. Because as I always say, if you depend on someone else to feed you, if you depend on someone else to make your food, they can always plant some poison in there for you, and you'll be sick in the mind when you watch it. So just be wary of that. You folks let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. Anyway, Chris Crazy House signing out. Peace.